Git is a version control system, and Git is an open source project originally developed in 2005 by Linus Torvald. You know who is Linus, I'm sure, because he created Linux kernel. It is bit different to SVN. Why it got a lot of useful feature if I compare it with SVN. Git allows a team to work together by allowing them to use same file for update or making changes at same time. It means multiple users can perform update or changes on a single file, and Git takes care of updating the file, merging the changes, so on. So I have listed couple of features about Git. That it's powerful version control system, as I mentioned. It's mature and actively maintained. What term mature mean? Like this particular project is in development since 2005. So since 11 years, it is in actively maintained state. So that's the reason it is mature, and I have mentioned it's actively maintained. So many developers across world are working to update or enhance the features about Git. Okay, next thing, having a distributed architecture or DVCS. So friends, as I mentioned, with SVN, that is not DVCS, but Git, that's distributed architecture. That's the reason multiple people can work on same file, and Git takes care about making mergers and updating the files, as I mentioned before. Okay, so next thing, in session today, we are going to install Git on one of the Linux servers. I have mentioned steps for RHEL, CentOS, Fedora, or Debian or Ubuntu, but my lab setup, that server is CentOS 7, so I will be following CentOS 7. Only installation command is different, but rest all things are same. Okay, so this is the way to install. I will cover it in technical session. After that, I want to tell you a little bit about Git usage and its workflow. If you see this figure A, this one, if you see, let's say you got a repository. Repository is basically a remote directory, you can say, at very basic level. So if you see on my screen, like 3 developers or engineers are working together on same repository. They are making their changes. So Git manages all the changes. It merges the changes, it updates the changes. So that's a handy feature of Git. So that's for demonstration only, how Git works. Then I have another figure, which is figure B, this one. So what I will try to explain how Git works, what is the workflow. So let's say you are on your Linux system, and this is your current directory, and using Git, you have added a file for a repository. Okay, so it goes to index or staging state. What staging mean? It is not actually written, but it's ready to be written to repository. So let's say you're this developer 1 making any changes to file, and he put it to staging or index, then changes are not written to actual repo, but they are here, somewhere here. And similar thing for developer 2, developer 3. At the end, when changes are written, so they are combined and merged and written to repository. So let's say developer 1, you add some data in text file, one test file. Developer 2 adds some data in test file, and developer 3, when they try to add the file, it checks, okay, these are the latest changes by developer 1. Okay, developer 2 is doing something, he added this thing, he added this particular bit. And if you are happy, like you can see the differences between files. If you're happy to write the changes, you can commit it and it will be written to your shared repository. So after indexing, when you run git commit, commit mean you are committing the changes. It gets written to repository. That's at very basic level, but Git is at bit higher level. I have not mentioned those things, like it can have different branches, like origin. I have not got on to that much detail. And I have written one particular note here about Git workflow, because that's important to understand the workflow, how it works. Again, I'm explaining. Local repository contain of 3 trees maintained by Git. These are 3 trees: current directory, index or staging directory, then repository. The first one is working current directory on the system which hold the actual data or files. Second is index or staging, which act as staging area. And finally the repository, which point to last commit you have made. This one, this is the last commit. Okay, so I have listed couple of commands here which are very basic commands. They are not at advanced level. I want to explain a little bit about these commands before I go to technical session. Okay, so git is the main command, and you can use help at the end, and action. Action can be add, commit, diff, clone, remote. Like these are the actions about git. So I have added example git help add. Add is action, so it will give you all the information or help related to add function or add action. Then I have added to configure git, because whenever you run git as your user, it's always advised you perform this config. Why this config is required? Let's say you are checking out or performing some changes, or let's say you are updating some data on repository. So if you configure these things, what it means, your credentials or your information, like this particular user have made changes to directory. So some other user who is also working on same directory or repository area, he will be aware, okay, user Yogesh Kumar is working presently on this repo. So he will be aware, and that's a recommendation. And to add a user, so git config followed by -- global space user.name and your username, for example Yogesh Mehta, and git config -- global space user dot, that's email, that's my mistake, ignore it, it's an email, not name, because name we have already typed, and this is the email yogesh.k.mehta@gmail.com. And if you want to see that particular config, you can run git config list. It will display whatever the config you have added. Okay, next thing, to add a new repository, so you can run git init. If you don't specify any directory, or like it will by default create repository using your current working directory. That's the reason I just did cd to this particular directory. Okay, then to add some data into this particular repository, you run git add file name. If you want to put everything there, git add star. Okay, so this is the example. Let's say we got one test file, we are going to add that test file. Now this file, once you add, that goes to staging or index area. That's not actually written to repository. To write it, you have to commit, and command is git commit space -m. -m is for message. Let's say you can add your message or commit remark. So here, let's say this is a script, test file is a script, you have added a comment that you have updated the script, and you can put your initial and put date, that's up to you. Okay, then let's say you want to clone some repository. For example, you got one repository on internet and you want to clone it locally. Locally mean you want to download it, so you can use git clone command. Git clone, for example, this is the repository, which is Ansible repository on internet, so you can download whole repository. Then next thing which I mentioned, that's git log. If you want to see what are the changes performed on a particular repository, like basically logging, you can use git log command. Git diff command is useful when you want to see difference. Let's say you got one file in repository and you got its replica in your home directory, and you want to see whether there are any changes in that file. If there are changes, what are the changes? You can get those with git diff command. Next thing, let's say you have made some changes, but you don't want git to track those changes. Then you can run git checkout space -- then file name. So it will discard all changes into git level, git indexing area. Basically, that's not actually changed in your local file, but git ignores all the changes. So you can run git checkout, as I mentioned, -- space file. So let's begin technical session, friends. I can explain these things so it will make more sense to you. Okay, on my screen you can see a server where I have configured CentOS. I have installed CentOS. Let me show you. It got Enterprise Linux 7 and it got CentOS version 7.2. So let's begin the Git installation. To install Git, as I mentioned, this is CentOS, so I'm going to use yum, and Git is part of base repository. So I'm running yum install git all. I'm saying -5 to yes. So the server is connected to internet and it will automatically get all the dependency packages from internet. If you see 51 MB download and install size will be 175 MB. It may take a couple of minutes to finish, so I'm just pausing this video. Once this installation is done, then I can jump again and explain other bits. So installation is almost finished, and now next thing is verifying. So package is installed. Okay, once package is installed, you can check whether package got installed successfully or not. You can run rpm -qa or grep for git. If you see, these are the git packages and its dependency. This is the main package. We got version 1.8.3. Otherwise, if you don't want to run rpm, you can check it with git followed by --version. So we got 1.8.3.1. Okay, that's good. So installation is successful. So first thing, how you can know what commands you can run, or you can see help. So git help, press enter. So see, these are the most common commands about Git. If you see this particular section, so let's say you want to check help about add action. These are actions basically. So let's run git help add. So it will give you a man page about help and how you can perform the changes, how you can check what actions you can do, what changes you can do with this particular action. So that's it. Like this, you can check about other actions too. So as I mentioned, first thing, like you have to add or your configuration, like global configuration, who you are, what you are going to do. So let's say git config --global user.name Yogesh Mehta. So that's my username. I'm just adding into Git. So if I'm performing any changes on Git repository, the other person who is going to check or perform changes, he can see, okay, Yogesh is working on this particular project. He can do changes too, but he will be aware someone else is working. Or let's say you have made some changes and after some time some other user logged in, he want to check who made the changes. If you go to this particular configuration, which is your initial setup configuration, he can be sure that Yogesh made some changes into script. So you can add this particular values. So I'm adding user.name Yogesh Mehta. Next thing, let's add email, user.email. So let's say yogesh.k.mehta@gmail.com. That's my Gmail ID. Okay. So I've added my email too. So you want to check whether this got saved or not, or what data you have added. So you can run git config followed by --list. If you see, username is Yogesh Mehta and user email is this particular one. So that's a configuration thing. That's a basic bit is done. So let's start our main thing. So let's create one repository. Let me create one directory, application/project1. Okay, so I've created one directory. Let me cd into this directory and I will create my first repository now. If you see ls-la, right now there is no git file. So first thing, I have to run git init. So it will create a new empty git repository. Pressing enter here. If you see message, it initialized empty git repository, which is .git. Earlier it was not there. Let me run ls-la again. You see now .git is created. So that's basically git repository. Okay, so that thing is done. Next thing, let's create one file here. Vim test to test file. Okay, so Vim is not there. My bad. It's very basic installation. Let's vi escape by. This is line 1. I'm just adding one random data. Okay, and saving it. Okay, let me cat this file to show the contents. Okay, so friends, we got one file. To check about git repository, about its status, you can run git status command. Okay, now if you see here, no initial commit and untracked file. What untracked mean? Git is not tracking these files at present. So this is a test file which we just created that is not tracked by Git. So let's say you want this file to be uploaded or written to repository. So first thing you have to do, you have to add this file into Git so Git can start tracking this file. To do that, git add, and that's the beauty of Git. It gives you command what you have to run. If you see this particular thing, that's a command which you have to run, git add file, and this is a file. So pressing enter here, okay, this file is added. Let's run git status again. Now if you see, that file is not there, okay, because it is saying now new file. It is not saying untracked file, but one message it is giving, changes to be committed. So this is not committed thing. It is into Git staging area, not Git repository. So to write it into Git, you have to use command git commit. And if you don't want to commit this, so you can rm using this particular command, git rm followed by dash cache, then file name. It will be unstaged. Why unstaging is required? Let's say you want to make more changes into this file. So you can unstage, you can make changes, then add or stage it again. So that's something. Let's say we want to commit these changes. We are sure this file is good and we want to write it. So git commit -m is message. Let's say I want to write okay, first version of script, just random comment ykm, and let's say 25th 12 2016, press enter. So now if you see, I got message, one file changed, one insertion, change mode, create mode, this particular test file. Okay, so if you see, file is committed now. Let me run git status again. Because it added a file, it means it's committed. If you see nothing to commit, it is showing on branch master, nothing to commit, working directory clean. What it mean? Whatever data in current directory, that is in sync with repository. Okay, now let me show you something. Let me make change in the test file, and this is line 2. So I have just added one data. Okay, so now let's run status command again. Now if you see, it is saying the file is modified, the test file is modified. Okay, but that's modified, Git can tell us, but the changes which we have just made, if we want to commit it, we have to add it in Git repository again, and we have to run commit again. So that's a way, like git add file name, and if you want to ignore those changes, you can run git checkout followed by file name, like this. If you don't specify file name, it will check out all the changes whatever in your current directory. Let's say I run checkout. If you see message, it is saying m, which is modification, test file. Now run git status again. If you see, it is telling it's modified. Okay, so let me vim and vi and revert the changes which I have made. This particular, I'm deleting this bit. So git status again. If you see, Git is that much intelligent. It automatically know, okay, now your file is same as on repository. So that Git takes care about all the changes you are performing. Let me add some random data again. Random data. Okay, so if you see now, it is saying file is modified. So let's upload this file. How you can upload a file with same name which is already on your Git repository, and basically you are updating file on your repository. So same way, you have to add this file into Git first. Git add and your file name. So now you have staged your file. It is not actually written into repository. If you see, it is saying it's modified and it's ready to be committed. Earlier it was not staged. Now it's staged, but it is not committed. Let's commit the changes. Or before committing, if you want to see what are the differences between file on repository and file on staging area, for that you can run git diff command and press enter. Sorry, it need to be run before staging. So let's unstage this file again. I have added, so let's write this file. I will create some new changes. So git commit -m version 2 example. Okay, so it's written, and let's run git status again. If you see, everything is in sync, and let me add another line here, test. Okay, something random data, and let's run git diff now. If you see, git diff command tells what are the differences between a file on your current directory and one on repository. If you see, this was a test file. It named A text file, which is on repo, B which is local. So if you see, it is showing this plus mean these are the changes. So test SSS, this particular comment or word is extra in local file. So in that way you can check the differences between remote and local files. Okay, so next thing I want to tell you, you want to see what things you have done with git. Let's say git logs is the command. Sorry, git log. If you see, these are the changes or commits which I have made. The first commit and second commit. First is at bottom. This is the first commit, author Yogesh Mehta, with this particular email ID this time, and this was the comment. Second time, this is version 2. I have added version 2 as comment, and these are the particular bits. So friends, in this way Git keeps track of all the changes when you commit the things. And let's say you have to revert to initial version, so you can revert easily using git commands. That's a benefit of using Git. If you want to download one particular version or old version, you can do it using Git. So next thing I want to tell you about Git is that it supports multiple branches. Like this demo session was only for basic things, basic commands, but you can configure Git in advanced level. You can use web-based Git. You can run or install Git HTTP packages, and so you can get Git in browser. Then you can integrate Git with Stash. So many things, man. So with Git, you can do advanced level things. So this session was only for basic introduction, and I believe you will be happy, or you will be aware like what is Git. So now you can start searching for advanced things. So thanks a lot for watching this videos, friend. If you have any query or any suggestion, just leave a comment on my YouTube channel. I will try to help you. So thank you again. Bye bye.